I'm going to show you a little bit about B30 latch and unlatch. Now B30 is this address right here, B3:0/0. You can come over here to your project tree and you can open up the binary B30 files. So this B30/0 is this bit right here. So I'm online right now with a processor and I've got a little program in here. This is a normally open push button and examine if closed. So if this is a normally open push button and we're using examine if closed, that statement's going to be false unless you press the button because it's wired normally open. We're going to use that to latch B30. And right here I've got a normally closed push button wired to this trainer on input 2, and I'm using examine if open. So if this is a normally closed switch and we're using examine if open, under normal conditions that's a false statement. So that's your unlatch. Now if I was to leave this normally closed push button, if I was to use the instruction type of examine if closed, this would constantly be unlatched. You could never latch this because it would be constantly unlatched until you press this button. Hope that makes sense, and if it don't, when you do your lab you'll get a better understanding of that. So when we latch B30, this examine if closed or go look for a 1 would go true and this would come on. This is examine open, right? So that's go look for a 0 in the bit box. Well, the address is B30/0, which is this. So there is a 0 in the bit box. So you see this output is on. So light number 2 is on because there's a 0 in the bit box. This is a perfect example of not having electrical continuity to turn on an output. There is no electrical continuity right now in this program. So, well, actually I take that back. We do have electrical continuity through this switch. Input 02 is actually on in the, if we look at the input status file, input number 2 is on. But this statement's false, so we're not unlatching anything continuously, right? That's the only electrical continuity we have, is this 1. But we're telling the program not to recognize the 1, but to look for the 0. So if we look back at our binary again, we're true here turning on this output only because the bit is off. Now as I press this normally open push button, you see that it momentarily went true and it latched this B30/0. See what it done to the bit in the bit box? It turned it on. So we're calling that our latching bit. So now that the B30 is on, this go look for a 1. Remember we said that's examine if closed or examine on. So it's on, it's in the on condition. There's a 1 in the bit box. Or if you will, think of that as go look for a 1 in the bit box. So there is a 1 in the bit box. This statement's true. We turned on our light. Now this one is go look for a 0 in the bit box, right? So examine if open, examine off, go look for a 0. So it's not off because there's a 1 in the bit box. There's no 0 in the bit box. And examine open, it's not open, which it's hard with B30 because there is no switch out there in the field. It's a internal latching relay within the program. So when you say examine if open, you're thinking of a switch out there in the field that might be open. What you need to think of this is it on or is it off? Well, B30 0 is on in the program, right? So if you think of this as examine if open, think of it as examine off. It is off, so, or examine on rather. If it's on, this will be lit up. If it's off, or if it's on, this will not be lit up, because we're thinking of this as examine off. And the bit is on, so this is not true. Therefore, this output's not on. Now, the way a latch and unlatch works, we use this input to turn it on B30, right? So we latched it with that. Now, we're going to use this normally closed push button. It could be normally open. We just have to change the way we addressed it. But we're going to use this normally closed push button to unlatch it. So whenever that went true, see that? True, false, true, false. When that went true, we unlatched B30. So now the bit turned off in the bit box. This statement's no longer true, so this output's off. This statement is true now, so this output's on again. So we use two separate inputs for a latch or unlatch, turning on the same bit, or turning on or off the same bit. We're turning it on here with a latch, turning it off here with an unlatch, and we're using this same bit to turn on two different lights. This one's going to turn it on when the bit's on, this one's going to turn it on when the bit's off.